Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are wading into some truly murky waters. I mean, usually when we pick up a thriller or, a psychological drama, we expect a certain rhythm.
Expect a structure, yeah. A formula, almost.
Exactly. We expect a mystery, some clues, a clear villain, and eventually some kind of resolution. But the book we're covering today, it just, it doesn't play by those rules at all.
Not even a little bit.
It feels less like a story and more like a psychological autopsy.
Yeah.
We are talking about Myrrh by Polly Hall.
Psychological autopsy is such a perfect way to describe it. I love that. Because you're right, this isn't your standard thriller. It's visceral, it's terrifying, but not in the jump scare sense.
No.
There are no guys in masks jumping out of closets. The terror here is entirely internal. It takes place almost exclusively inside the heads of two women who are, to put it mildly, deeply unaware.
Deeply. We're dealing with two narrators, Myrrh and Cayenne. And honestly, I spent half the book just trying to figure out who scared me more.
It's a tough call.
It really is. They're both unreliable, both damaged, and both. And this is a really unsettling part. Both terrifyingly relatable in their darkest moments.
That's the central tension of the book, isn't it? It challenges you as the reader to look at badness not as an event or a reaction to something, but as a state of being.
A condition.
Exactly, a condition. The text is constantly asking this really uncomfortable question. Are these women victims of their circumstances, or is there something inherently, maybe even biologically, wrong with them?
Which is a terrifying question to ask about anyone, let alone yourself. But before we even meet these characters, before we get into the goblin inside Myrrh's head or the spiders in Cayenne's kitchen, we have to talk about that title, Myrrh.
It's a heavy word, just on its own.
It is. I think for most people, myself included, the immediate association is biblical, right? You think of the three wise men, gold, frankincense, and myrrh.
A precious gift.
It feels like a gift. It feels precious, maybe a bit dusty and ancient, but valuable, sacred even.
Right, it has that connotation of holiness or reverence, but Polly Hall strips that away on page 1, literally the epigraph. She gives us the etymology, and it completely reframes how you read the rest of the book.
It's like a warning.
It is. She tells us the word comes from the Arabic myrrh.
Which means?
It literally translates to bitter.
Bitter. Which, I mean, that's already a great setup for a noir or a psychological horror.
Yeah.
But it was the description of how myrrh is harvested that actually made me wince. I hadn't realized how violent the process is.
It's brutal. I looked it up afterwards, and it's exactly as described. To get myrrh, you don't just pick a fruit or gather some leaves. You have to harvest the resin, the sap.
And the book describes this process as repeatedly wounding the tree to make it bleed tears of aromatic gum.
Bleed tears.
Repeatedly wounding the tree. I stopped reading for a second when I hit that line. It's such a visceral image. You have to slash the bark over and over and over to get the prize.
And think about what that metaphor does for the story we're about to hear. The aromatic gum, the story, the art, the thing we are consuming, is the direct result of wounding. It suggests that beauty or value is bleeding out of damage.
It's almost extractive. It feels like the author is telling us from the very beginning, I'm going to wound these characters and you're going to watch them bleed. And that is the entertainment. It's a real challenge to the reader.
Exactly. It frames the whole narrative as a product of trauma. You have these characters, Myrrh and Cayenne, who are being repeatedly slashed by life, by their own choices, by their pasts. And the story is the resin. It's beautiful in a dark, compelling way, but it's born from pain.
So our mission today is to tear that tree apart. We're going to unpack the disturbing inner worlds of these two women. We need to talk about the goblin that lives inside Myrrh's head, which I have to say is one of the most effective and creeping literary devices I've encountered in years.
It's haunting. It really is.
And we're going to look at the suffocating desperation of the second narrator, Cayenne. Because while they seem totally separate at first, they are mirroring each other in ways that are just profoundly tragic.
They are like two sides of a very dark coin, running in opposite directions, but from the same place.
So let's start with Myrrh. She is our primary voice. And if you met her on the street or at work, you probably wouldn't look twice. She seems functional.
She's trying. She has a job. She drives the car. She goes to therapy. She's putting on the costume of a normal person every day.
But inside, inside, the architecture is completely different. She is hosting a parasite, and she calls it the goblin.
The goblin. I mean, the name choice is so specific. Not a demon, not a devil, a goblin.
Right. What does that imply to you? A goblin is?
What?
What? Mischievous, ugly, maybe a bit pathetic, but also deeply malevolent.
Exactly. It's not grand evil. It's a petty, nasty, cackling little thing in the corner of your mind. It's a creature of filth and darkness. And when I first read that, I thought, okay, is this a metaphor for depression? Is this just a bad mood? But it's so much more specific than that.
It's a voice, a distinct, malevolent voice that narrates her life in real time. It's a running commentary.
It acts as an internal antagonist. And you're right, it's not just a cloud of sadness. It's an active participant in her psyche. What stands out to me is how specific the goblin's commands are.
Oh, they're not vague at all.
It's not just generic self-loathing like, you're worthless. It's violent. It's nihilistic. It wants destruction. It wants her to cause pain.
There's this one scene that really, for me, nails this dynamic, and it's so mundane, which is why it's so powerful. She's at a petrol station.
Just filling up her car.
Literally just filling up her car with gas. It's a gray, boring chore. Anyone could be doing it. But the goblin is there whispering things like, burn them all.
Stuff it down. Stab him in the eye. Just this litany of violent imperatives.
It's the contrast that makes it so chilling. You have Myrrh standing there on the forecourt, probably looking completely calm, maybe checking her phone or watching the numbers on the pump click up. Just a normal person.
But internally, she is holding back a monster that wants to incinerate the world. A tiny, cackling monster.
The perfect representation of what psychologists might call intrusive thoughts, but, dialed up to 11. We all have those flash moments. What if I just swerved into traffic? But for Myrrh, the voice has a personality. It has agency.
And she has to actively fight it every second of the day. It must be exhausting.
Let's stay at that petrol station for a minute, because the way she observes the world around her in that scene is, well, it's terrifying, but it's also wildly creative in a really dark way. She's watching a family in the car next to her.
Right, standard setup. Mom, dad, 2 kids in the back, probably going on holiday or just a day trip. To anyone else, it's a boring tableau, white noise.
But Myrrh puts her x-ray vision on it. She looks at the father in the passenger seat. He's not speaking. He's just sitting there staring ahead.
And Myrrh doesn't see a tired dad. She doesn't see a guy bored on a long car ride. She sees a container of violence.
She describes him as being full of suppressed explosives.
Suppressed explosives. And then she gets even more graphic, which, this is where the writing is just so brilliant and disturbing. She imagines that inside him is a battalion of armor-plated locusts.
That image stuck with me for days. Armor-plated locusts. Why locusts?
Well, locusts are a plague, aren't they? They're biblical. They devour everything in their path. They strip the land bare. There's no reasoning with them. It's just total consumption.
And she thinks he's keeping his mouth shut, not because he's peaceful, but because if he opens it, these locusts will burst out and physically strip the flesh off his wife and kids.
It's grotesque.
She literally imagines his wife as a pile of clean bones on the forecourt. And this is just her casual observation while the pump clicks off. Oh, nice weather. That guy is about to unleash a plague of flesh-eating insects. It's just her Tuesday.
And this speaks volumes about projection, doesn't it? Myrrh feels full of destructive potential. Her goblin. So she projects that onto everyone else. She has to. She assumes the father is just like her, holding back a swarm.
Because if he isn't holding back a swarm,
then she is alone. And that is the one thing she cannot bear to be. If she's the only monster, she's isolated. She's a freak. But if the whole world is full of monsters wearing human suits, then she fits in. It's a twisted kind of comfort.
But then it gets darker. Of course it does. Because she doesn't just observe them and think, wow, that's scary. She fantasizes about their death.
She does. She looks at that car, that family, and thinks that if she were the mother, she might just drive the car off a cliff.
But, and here is where it gets really, really interesting to me, she doesn't frame it as murder. She doesn't think, I want to kill them out of hate.
No, not at all.
She frames it as an act of kindness.
That's the twist. She thinks it would be a twisted act of kindness to save them from the misery of their lives. She assumes their lives are as miserable as hers, so ending it would be a mercy.
And she even thinks that dying with them would be a way to force a connection, a belonging.
Right. She thinks if they all died together in a fiery crash, she would be associated with them forever. Their names would be in the paper together. It's this desperate, morbid desire for belonging. If I can't be part of your family in life, I'll be part of your family in the obituary.
It's just unbelievably sad when you break it down like that.
And the goblin loves it. The text says the goblin smirked and cackled. It's like she has an audience for her worst thoughts, cheering her on.
It's fascinating that she acknowledges this separation from other people.
Yeah.
She talks about a wall of glass. She feels there is a fragile, invisible wall separating her from normal people.
And she's the one who put it there. Or she believes she did. She believes she has done something unimaginable, something that puts her permanently on the other side of that wall. She's in the monster exhibit at the zoo, and everyone else is just walking by.
And this leads us to the core philosophical conflict in Myrrh's sections. She actually addresses the reader directly about this badness. She says, maybe I was just born bad.
That line stopped me cold. Maybe I was just born bad. We are so conditioned by modern storytelling and by therapy culture, honestly, to expect a reason.
We want the tragic backstory. We want to hear they were abused or poor or neglected, something external that we can point to and say, that's why.
Exactly. We want cause and effect. He became the Joker because society failed him. It makes us feel safe. It means if we fix society or fix the trauma, we can prevent the monster. It's a comforting formula.
But Myrrh explicitly rejects that. She refuses to give us the out. She says, I was never marked out as the problem child. She says her life was comfortable. She had food. She had a home. She refuses to use the tragic backstory card.
She's challenging the entire nurture argument. She's positing the nature argument in its most terrifying form, that some people are just born wrong. She says, I was only taking what was rightfully mine, implying her badness is an inheritance, not a reaction, an entitlement.
So if she believes she was born bad, where does she think she came from? This leads us to the mystery of her origins. Myrrh is adopted.
Yes. And this is central to her identity crisis. It's the gaping hole in the middle of her life. She feels like a piece of a puzzle that's in the wrong box. She doesn't fit the picture she's in.
We get a flashback to her infancy that explores this. And it's told from the perspective of her foster mother.
Right. She was in foster care with a woman named Mrs. McMahon. Now, Mrs. McMahon seems like a saint on paper. She's taken in hundreds of kids. She lives by the sea. She listens to the shipping forecast. She's this sturdy, dependable figure.
But even Mrs. McMahon noticed something off.
Yeah.
About baby Myrrh.
Deeply off. There's a scene where Mrs. McMahon and her neighbor, Mrs. Willows, are standing over the crib. And they aren't cooing. They aren't saying, oh, look at her little nose. They're observing her. Like a specimen.
And Mrs. Willows looks at the baby and thinks, it could be a changeling, a fairy child.
A changeling. That word carries so much historical weight, so much fear.
For listeners who might not be up on their 17th century folklore, let's unpack that. What are we actually talking about when we say changeling?
Historically, the changeling myth was a way for rural, pre-scientific communities to explain things they couldn't understand. Neurodivergence, autism, failure to thrive, sudden infant death syndrome, or any kind of disability.
So you have a healthy baby, and suddenly they stop developing, or they scream constantly, or they don't make eye contact. They don't behave like a normal baby should.
And instead of saying this child is sick or this child is different, the explanation was the fairies came in the night, stole the real human baby, and left this thing, this stick figure, this monster in its place.
It's a mechanism of dehumanization, isn't it?
Completely. If the baby is a changeling, it's not yours. You don't have to love it. It's an invader. And in folklore, the way to get your real baby back was often to abuse the changeling. Put it on a hot shovel, leave it in the woods. Horrific things.
God. So when Mrs. Willows looks at baby Myrrh and sees a changeling, she isn't just calling her weird. She's stripping her of her humanity. She's giving the foster mother permission to not bond with her. She's labeling her as other.
Exactly. It frames the baby as an intruder. And the text suggests Myrrh, even as an infant, was performing this otherness. It says the baby looked like she knew some unspeakable thing.
Like she was born old.
Yes. And the scratching, that detail really got to me. The text says the baby had to wear mittens because she would scratch her own face raw.
It's body horror in a crib. She's trying to claw her own skin off. It's like she's trying to tear off the human suit that doesn't fit, even as a baby.
And Mrs. McMahon's reaction is so bizarre. She hears the baby crying, and she doesn't hear a baby's cry. She imagines the baby is shouting profanities. She imagines the baby swearing in a sailor's voice.
That detail is so telling about the adults.
Yeah.
A baby can't swear. But Mrs. McMahon is projecting malice onto an infant. It suggests that the adults were deciding she was bad before she could even speak. They were writing her story for her.
So was she born bad, or was she treated like a monster until she became one? That's the loop the book traps you in, the chicken or the egg of evil.
And that loop just tightens as she grows up. Fast forward a few years. Myrrh is 9 years old. It's her birthday party.
This scene is heartbreaking because on the surface, it's a classic British birthday party. Jelly and ice cream, sandwiches made of gluey white bread with the crusts cut off. It should be a happy memory.
It should be a moment of pure childhood joy. But for Myrrh, it's a nightmare. because the goblin is on the guest list.
Of course, the goblin wouldn't miss her birthday.
She's sitting there trying to eat her jelly, trying to be a normal 9-year-old, and the goblin is whispering in her ear, "This will never last. Bite your tongue and fill your mouth with blood."
Fill your mouth with blood at a 9-year-old's birthday party. It's such a violation of innocence. It's turning a moment of sweetness into something grotesque.
And it's not just mental. It's not just a bad thought. It creates a somatic reaction. Myrrh physically vomits. She's eating the cake, but the internal pressure of the goblin makes her sick.
That moment is pivotal because she realizes then that the goblin might be permanent. She thinks, you can't squash me down, I'll always be here. It's the realization that she is never alone. She is always accompanied by this voice of destruction.
And this all feeds her obsession with her birth mother.
Yeah.
She wants to know why she is this way. She thinks if she can find the source, the origin story, she can explain the goblin.
Her internal monologue directed at her birth mother is just full of rage. It's a howl of pain. She asks, why did you not have an abortion? Who the fuck am I?
She feels totally unmoored. She says she feels like a jigsaw puzzle with the wrong pieces. She's grasping at connections that aren't there, just trying to find one piece that fits.
Which brings us to the other side of the story. Because while Myrrh is looking backward, desperately trying to find her origin, our other narrator, Cayenne, is looking forward, desperately trying to force a future.
Cayenne. We have to pivot to Cayenne now. And wow, if Myrrh is the monster who knows she's a monster, Cayenne is the monster who thinks she's a Disney princess.
Oh, Cayenne is fascinating. She is the other woman who has, quote unquote, won. She's in a relationship with a man who has a daughter from a previous relationship, and she is desperate for the fairy tale.
She uses that word right, fairy tale. She wants the happily ever after, the baby carriage, the doting husband, the white picket fence. She wants the whole package.
But it's a performative desire. She talks about love as a kind of salvation, a possession. She says, he is the one who lifts me up from the gutter.
Lifts me up from the gutter. It's so melodramatic.
It is. She feels she is on a precipice, and this man and the family he represents are her safety net. Without them, she'll fall.
But the reality of her life is so toxic. She claims to be gracious and generous. She actually uses those words about herself. But her internal monologue is vicious, just pure acid.
She is the ultimate unreliable narrator. She'd say, I'm feeling gracious today, and then immediately describe her stepdaughter as having a whiny baby voice or a PT doll face that she clearly despises.
The rivalry with the stepdaughter is so petty, but so dangerous. There's this little moment where the daughter criticizes Cayenne's flowers, calls them rank, and you can feel Cayenne internally spiral.
And Cayenne calls her own feelings a nest of vipers.
There's that nature imagery again. Moore has locusts. Cayenne has vipers.
Exactly. They both use animalistic, destructive imagery to describe their emotions. But while Myrrh's goblin feels like an intruder, something separate from her, Cayenne's vipers feel like her own suppressed personality trying to get out. It's her, but she won't admit it.
Cayenne's darkest wish, which she barely admits even to herself, is that the father will just forget his daughter.
She thinks he will find there are hours, days, weeks when he doesn't think of her at all. She wants to erase the daughter so she can have the man all to herself. It's a chilling form of jealousy. It's not just wanting to be first. It's wanting the competition to be annihilated.
But the moment that really turned my stomach with Cayenne wasn't about the daughter. It was the spider.
The spider in the kitchen. This is a masterclass in characterizing a lack of empathy through a small, seemingly insignificant act.
So set the scene for us. She's in the kitchen. She's been talking to this spider that lives in a crack in the tiles. She feels a kinship with it.
She projects a relationship onto it. She says, we have an understanding. She reflects on how spiders eat their own kind. She identifies with the predator. She thinks she's Snow White talking to the animals, but really she's admiring a cannibal.
She even watches this girl in a supermarket, a wild, energetic girl being scolded by her mother, and she relates it back to fragility, to humans leaking blood. She seems to have this deep, thoughtful well of empathy.
It seems that way. And then the ironing scene.
It's so abrupt and brutal. She's ironing a shirt, her partner's shirt, and she sees a lump under the fabric.
She knows what it is.
She has to know.
Yeah.
But she doesn't lift the iron to check. She doesn't brush it away. She presses down. Harder. That sound. The text describes the pop, the sound of this tiny life being extinguished by heat and pressure. She realizes she's ironed the spider into the fabric.
And her reaction is key. She doesn't scream. She doesn't feel guilt. She doesn't mourn the friend she had an understanding with.
She throws the shirt away.
She says, I throw it in the trash with the dead spider still welded to the fabric and pretend it never existed.
Pretend it never existed. That is her modus operandi. That's her whole life philosophy. If something is messy or dead or difficult, delete it, erase it from the narrative.
It reveals that her empathy is fragile at best, maybe even non-existent. It's performative. She destroys the very thing she claimed to bond with the moment it becomes an inconvenience.
Which is terrifying when you realize she's trying to do the exact same thing to her stepdaughter.
Exactly. The spider is a rehearsal. She wants to iron out the stepdaughter from the family fabric. She wants to press down, hear the pop, and throw the mess in the trash so she can have the husband all to herself. The spider proves that her graciousness is a mask, a very thin one.
And this connects back to Myrrh. Both women are dealing with this internal badness, but they manifest it so differently. Myrrh is terrified of her goblin. She's at war with it. Cayenne seems to be in denial about her nest of vipers. She pretends they're not there.
One is fighting her shadow, the other is pretending she doesn't cast one.
Now, these two stories seem separate. Myrrh is searching for the past, Cayenne is hunting for the future, but they start to converge, at least thematically, through a mystical connection. Myrrh gets involved in a spiritual group.
Right. She's desperate for answers. Modern therapy isn't working, so she turns to the ancient. She goes to this group with a partner named Colin. And can we just take a moment to appreciate the description of Colin?
Oh, poor Colin. Myrrh absolutely loathes him. The description is so visceral. She describes his breath as smelling like tinned fish and vinegar.
And the clacking of his tongue when he speaks. The sensory details are so repulsive. It really shows her hypersensitivity to physical disgust. She can't stand being in a body, and she can't stand other people's bodies either. He's just another messy, leaking human to her.
So they do a tarot reading. And Myrrh, in this moment of vulnerability, asks the cards a very specific question. How do I find my family?
And the cards she draws are devastating. If you know tarot, this spread is a nightmare. They are all reversed, every single one.
Let's break them down, because this isn't just mystical woo-woo in the story. It's a brilliant device for psychological projection. First, she draws the reversed emperor.
Okay, so the emperor upright usually represents authority, structure, control, father figures. It's a very stable, powerful card.
But reversed, it's chaos. It's abuse of power or a lack of discipline. Colin, the guy with the bad breath, interprets the reversal as immaturity.
But Myrrh immediately spirals. She doesn't hear immaturity. She hears father figures. She thinks of authority figures, fathers, daddy's little girl, the family she never had.
And it triggers the goblin instantly. The goblin whispers, "Daddy hates your guts." It takes the abstract card and makes it a personal, vicious attack.
Then the second card, the reversed high priestess.
The high priestess upright is all about intuition, secrets, the unconscious, hidden knowledge, a very mysterious, powerful, feminine energy.
Right. But reversed, it suggests blocked intuition or secrets being revealed in a bad way. Hidden truths bubbling up to the surface. It's about not trusting your gut. And the goblin taunts her here, saying, open it up, slice it clean.
It's violent imagery again. The goblin wants to cut the truth out of her, like a surgeon removing a tumor. It sees secrets as something to be sliced open, not gently uncovered.
And finally, the outcome card, the reverse devil, which is,
It's a lot. The devil card upright is about obsession, addiction, bondage. Being trapped by your own material desires or negative patterns. It's about being chained to your worst impulses.
So reversed, it can mean breaking free from those chains. But here, in this context, the goblin twists it. It sees it as a confirmation of her bondage to her own dark nature.
The goblin goes into overdrive during this reading. It threatens to make Myrrh physically humiliated if she speaks her truth. It says, and this is incredibly graphic, "I can twist your gut so they make you shit out your mouth."
The visceral nature of the goblin's threats is so disturbing. It's all about the body turning inside out, becoming grotesque, being shamed. It wants to humiliate her. It wants to make her repulsive to the outside world, just like she feels inside.
But despite the goblin's threats, this tarot reading leads Myrrh to a new obsession, a new thread to pull on. She learns that the artist of the Rider-Waite Tarot deck, the iconic deck they are using, is a woman named Pamela Coleman Smith.
And this is where Myrrh's mind, which is so desperate for a story, starts to grasp at straws. She finds out that Pamela Coleman Smith lived, for a time, in Cornwall.
And Myrrh knows she was born in Cornwall. That's the only fact she has about her origins. One word on a piece of paper. Cornwall.
So she constructs this elaborate fantasy. She latches onto this. She starts to think, maybe this eccentric, bohemian, magical artist is my ancestor. Maybe I'm not from trash. Maybe I'm from art.
It's a classic orphan fantasy, isn't it? You want your parents to be special, you want to be the secret child of a queen or a wizard or a famous artist. It's a way to explain your own feeling of being different. Myrrh imagines this connection based on nothing but geography and a shared sense of otherness.
She imagines Pamela as exotic looking, just like Myrrh feels herself to be. She reads that Pamela's nickname was Pixie. It feeds directly into the fairy child, the changeling narrative from her infancy. She thinks, see, I'm not a monster, I'm a pixie, I'm like her.
But the therapist in reality crushes this fantasy. He points out, very matter-of-factly, that Pamela Coleman Smith died penniless and alone.
She died in obscurity with nothing. No legacy, no money. Buried in an unmarked grave, basically. A tragic, lonely end.
And the goblin pounces on that. It uses that fact as a weapon. It says, you aren't wanted now. No one wants damaged goods. Thrown away.
It's so tragic. Myrrh tries to replace her bad lineage with a magical lineage, but the goblin reminds her that in her mind, she is just trash. Thrown away, as the goblin puts it. She can't escape the core narrative of being discarded.
This brings us to the real intersection of these two women. They're both running. Desperately.
Yes. Myrrh is running toward a past that might not want her. She's desperate to find the mother who gave her up, hoping it will fix her, hoping for an answer that will silence the goblin.
And Cayenne is running toward a future, this family, this baby she wants, that actively resists her. The stepdaughter hates her. The partner seems indifferent at best. The future she wants doesn't want her in it.
Let's look at their views on love, because it's so telling. For Cayenne, love is ownership. She says, just because you are related to someone doesn't mean you own them, regarding the daughter, but that's exactly what she wants. She wants to own the father. She wants to consume him and his life.
While Myrrh sees love as a jigsaw puzzle with the wrong pieces. She sees families trying to force connections that aren't real. She watches that family at the gas station and thinks they are grasping at the ungraspable. She sees the performance of family.
Both women feel that human connection is fundamentally flawed or fraudulent. Cayenne tries to fake it with graciousness, and Myrrh tries to dissect it, but neither can truly feel it safely. They're both alienated from the very thing they are chasing.
And the world of the novel reflects this alienation. The visual imagery in the book is all about decay and danger and nature being hostile.
Oh, absolutely. The sea is a big one. Mrs. Macman, the foster mom, lives by the sea. But it's not a nice beach vacation. It's not restorative. Myrrh describes the sea as grinding and crushing and mashing.
She wonders why people find it calming when, to her, it's just a massive churn of creatures eating each other, a constant violent struggle for survival.
It's a Darwinian view of the world, survival of the fittest. Myrrh sees the world as a place where you either eat or get eaten. There is no middle ground. There's no peace.
Which brings us back to the spider. Cayenne eats the spider, metaphorically, before it can bite her. She destroys it, an act of preemptive violence.
And the locusts. Myrrh fears the locusts inside others because she fears the goblin inside herself. She knows what it's like to have a swarm in your head waiting to be unleashed.
So what does this all mean? We have two women, both traumatized, both struggling with their badness, living these parallel lives of quiet desperation.
I think the book is a meditation on the shadow self. You know, Carl Jung talked about the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny, we hide, or we repress. All the ugly bits we don't want to admit are ours.
And the goblin is Myrrh's shadow given a voice, a name, a personality.
Exactly. And Cayenne is a shadow. She's the other woman trying to become the main character, but she's doing it by suppressing her true venomous nature. She's living a lie.
That's a great way to put it. Myrrh confronts her shadow constantly. She fights the goblin every minute of every day. It's an open war. Cayenne pretends her shadow doesn't exist, which might actually make her more dangerous.
It does. Because when you deny your shadow, when you pretend it's not there, it tends to act out in ways you can't control. It seeps out in small, cruel acts, like ironing a spider, or a resentful look at a child.
It raises a really uncomfortable question for us as listeners, as readers. We all have that voice, but maybe not a goblin that tells us to burn them all, but a voice of self-doubt, a voice that says, you're a fraud.
The voice that says you're not good enough, or they're all laughing at you. Myrrh personifies that universal inner critic. She gives it a shape. She gives it a name, and she makes it monstrous.
And the scary part is she thinks that voice is the truth. She thinks the rational, diplomatic Myrrh, the one who goes to work and fills up the gas tank, is the mask. And the goblin is the reality.
That's the born bad hypothesis coming full circle. If you strip away the social niceties, the manners, the therapy, the clothes, is there a monster underneath? Myrrh thinks yes. She thinks we are all just holding back the locusts.
And Cayenne proves it. When the pressure is on, like when she's ironing a shirt and gets annoyed, the monster comes out. Pop.
It's a bleak view of humanity, but it's undeniably powerful. It forces us to look at the gap between who we pretend to be and who we are in the dark when no one's watching.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a thought. Myrrh claims she wasn't made bad by trauma. She says she is bad. It's her nature.
Which is the ultimate horror, isn't it? It's not a ghost, not a killer, not a vampire, but the idea that your own soul might be rotten from the start, that there's no cure because there's no disease, there's just you.
So here's the question. If we strip away our trauma, our history, our parents, is there an innate self left? And is it possible for that self to be inherently wrong?
Or is that just another lie the goblin tells us to keep us isolated? Is the belief that we are bad just the ultimate trick of the shadow, to convince us we're alone in our darkness?
That is the question Myrrh leaves us with, and it's a question that's definitely going to keep me up tonight.
Definitely. It's a book that stays with you like a stain you can't quite wash out. Bitter taste.
Well, on that cheerful note, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the twisted minds of Myrrh and Cayenne.
Always a pleasure to explore the darkness with you.
And for you listening, next time you're at a gas station, maybe don't look too closely at the driver next to you. You never know what locusts they're holding back.
Or what goblin is whispering in their ear.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next deep dive.